kind of gets mad when I say it. He's been a great mentor to me as well. I've known him for 5+ years now. His name is Dave LaRue. He's a successful entrepreneur. He's a great father. He's a great husband. I look up to him in a lot of ways. I feel like I learn from him, and I feel, lately as our relationship's grown, we learn a lot from each other too, which is great. And he's a successful entrepreneur that recently got into coaching as well. So he has a private coaching group called the Comma Club that I've been a part of for a handful of years now, where we get together once a quarter and we work on ourselves personally and professionally, and we share things that we don't really share with a lot of people. It's a really great group to be a part of. So I've grown so much from that group. Grateful for the relationship as well. We always have fun and joke around, and the relationship's effortless, which is part of what we talk about in this conversation, is the importance of effortless relationships. So really great convo. I enjoyed it a lot. I know you will as well.
This is Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams, where differing opinions are not only accepted, they're encouraged.
All right, Dave, we're live. Thanks for hopping on.
It's great to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. I'm up here in north of Toronto on my island home, and it's a little chilly this morning. The fall is in the air. The trees are turning colors.
It sounds beautiful. We can relate. I think it's like 90 degrees right now or something.
Well, I'll be back in West Palm pretty soon. I'm not. It's only a few weeks away, and I'll be back in my favorite home state of Florida. So
you're flying from Toronto to Dallas for the Comma Club?
I'll be going to Dallas next week to the Comma Club. Then I'll be stopping back in Minneapolis for some work at my company up there with my teams. And then I'll be going, coming back up here, and I have to do the quarantine thing for about 14 days once I come back, even if I test negative, and they still make you cross, when you go across borders. And the only reason I can come across the border is my wife is Canadian. So she's Canadian, I'm American. So we can kind of, when you're related, you can still cross the borders. But otherwise, it's a pain in the neck. It's a lot of work.
What was the process like, actually, so you're still a U.S. Do you have like residency in Canada at all, or do you just have your place there?
No, I am. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur, and I pay taxes in 12 countries already, and I pay in, I think, 14 states. So I don't want to add another one to my list, but it looks like I'm going to have to, because we have a hand sanitizer, and you are aware of that product, and we just got approval up here in Canada with all their certification numbers and stuff. So it looks like we're going to be selling that stuff up here too. So I guess I'm going to have to give in and do it. So, but it's typically when I do it, I'll sometimes, I'll scatter in private in there once in a while, and that makes it a lot easier, especially when you're going with dogs and all that stuff that we have. So, anyways, it's a fun process. I love it up here. I'm not sure the Canadians love me, but I love it up here. So,
yeah, it's crazy. Speaking of taxes, I don't know if you've been seeing I saw some report, like $500 billion in net worth has moved out of the state of New York in the last year. Have you been following that? All the people moving from New York and California?
I do. I follow it, and I get asked that a lot because I go around and coach so many people all over, in different countries and different things. And I get asked that a lot because people, of course, with our current administration, they all, there's, people that love Trump, and there's people that don't love him. And then there are people like me that are just, policy guys or fiscal conservative guys. And so I don't believe in big government being the solution to everything. So, I've learned how to dance a little bit as I go around the world talking about that. But I usually always just put it back onto people, and I say, well, you can, you don't have to like people. Like, I do lots of business in different areas and different things for our company. And, frankly, we're not trying to be best friends. I'm not trying to be socially best friends with everybody we deal with. We want to get along. We want to have values that are consistent and congruent to a certain degree. But it's not about that. It's about what we can do for each other, what the businesses can do for each other, what policies there are, so we can actually, have freedom and have a great life, And so it's kind of where I come from on that. I don't like to label myself too much, but you probably could label. You and I have had many late night discussions, where we're sitting and pondering different things. And with our age difference, because I'm so much older than you, I have children older than you, right? So there's a little bit of a gap there, but it's interesting as we just embrace in the dialogue and we embrace in not imposing our values on one another, and we receive each other and and respect each other. It's amazing how much movement we can have and how much we can impact one another, isn't it? I mean, you've impacted me a great deal on what younger people, are, thinking, and what you're going through, and all the challenges that you have that are probably different than the ones that I had when I was your age. But there's probably some similar ones too, just labeled different.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had I think we've probably talked about every type of topic under the sun. It is interesting though, as I'm getting a little older, and I turned 30 now, Dave, which is crazy. You've known me since my probably 25, so I feel like I've grown a lot.
24, yeah.
24, 25. I've grown a lot in that time, right? But as I'm starting to earn a little bit more, pay a little bit more taxes, different things, at least on a federal policy standpoint, are priority to different people, right? And I think that's one thing that I'm starting to understand. Like, certain voters care about one thing over everything else. And where I'm at in my life, I'm trying to build wealth for myself and my future family one day. Tax policy is really, really important to me because, me not paying those taxes now, I'm investing a lot of my cash, I've shared with you. I mean, that 20, 30 years from now, that's a lot of investment dollars that, is just based on who's in office is going to, positively or negatively affect my family. So obviously, as when I have a family one day and things, my priorities could change in who I elect. But, I've always just looked out typically for that. And there's a few other things, but I think just everybody has, when we talk about values a lot in Common Club, everybody has what's most important to them. And I think just figuring out what's most important to people is crucial to understanding why people vote the way they do. Like, people for Trump or for Biden, probably don't agree with half the shit they say. It's just like, hey, but these policies are important to me because I'm an American and I can decide what's important to me, and that's what I'm gonna base, because all I can do is based on what's vote for me, or vote based on what's important for me and my family. And I think regardless of what anybody says, that's what most people end up doing.
Well, I'd like to come back to two things I thought about while you're talking about it. At the Common Club, I always talk about the relationships you want to have and build the five kind of the spokes of the wheel: the relationships, the spirituality, and words are important, and I'll go back to that too. And then vocation, financial, and social. The thing about when we get political and so on, and I always am around entrepreneurs, I'm around people that are creators of value creators. There are people that are taking risks and chances. There are people that are hiring people, creating opportunities, creating jobs, creating great solutions in the marketplace, right? When they do that stuff, that's the social aspect. There's so many of us that we feel guilty that we're not doing our fair share, that we should be doing more. Well, first off, we're paying a lot of taxes. We're creating lots of opportunities. We're creating jobs that are paying taxes. We're creating, what we do with our businesses and how we help other businesses, we're creating economic activity there. So it really is a big deal. And I don't think the small business person gives themselves enough credit for that. And and I learned that actually from a big business guy reading his various books that he's written. It was Richard Branson, and he always said, "Hey, leave that big social, the big stuff, the money giving and that to the publicly traded companies. We're dealing with the public's money anyways, and we should be giving that back to the public. Whereas entrepreneurs need their money to reinvest in their businesses, buy the tools necessary to be able to create more capacity, capabilities, so they can create more opportunities for, other people, other businesses, etc." So it's kind of my mindset when I think about that. And it's just been a real healthy place for me to be. Now, when you get into, I will tell you and the listeners that I'm 64 years old. And I work hard at staying, healthy and feeling good and all the rest of it. But I'm going to tell you something. So I've been voting since 18 years old, right? So that's 42 plus 6. So it's 46 years I've been voting. You know how many years I've listened to them talk about education and abortion and all these causes? For 46 years. It's crazy to me. It's like, okay, so this has been a hot ball for a hot potato for 46 years. And I'm kind of, come on, let's get some solutions here. So anyways, enough about that. But it's the side of it is what you said on the imposing of values. And that is a really big part. And that's where the magic of your and my relationship really has had a chance to blossom, because I'm not trying to change you into a mini Dave LaRue. And you're not grinding on me trying to, you grind a little bit on certain things, but it's been healthy because I've received it, right? And, and that really is magical. So for you out there listening and thinking about this, and relationships are so important, and who you hang out with is so important, isn't it? Right? And so that part of it is, to take inventory of that. But if you really want to create great, deep relationships, stop trying to impose your values onto everybody.
That's good insight, actually. And you brought up something really interesting there. Why do you think business owners, especially if you're a medium or large size business owner, they're almost villainized in society, which it's okay. Like, maybe there's pressure on them to do certain things and whatever. I'm not expecting them to be treated as gods. But to your point, business owners and entrepreneurs do so much good in society. They create jobs. They invest in projects and infrastructure. Like downtown Orlando, a ton of restaurants have went out of business. Like, it's going to take an entrepreneur with capital to say, hey, here's $1 million to build up this restaurant. Fuck, I hopefully get this money back.
Exactly.
It's not, this stuff's not going to build itself. Like, downtown's not going to come back to what it was just with us electing a different president or re-electing the existing president. Regardless of who's in office, it's going to take an entrepreneur willing to invest their capital. So why do you think so many Americans have a mindset that almost villainizes successful business owners when they do so much good for society?
Oh boy, that's, in human behavior, I think is one of the things that is so difficult because, everybody has their reasons, right? And one of the values that I just embrace the most is I love real. I want to hang out with real people. I want to hang out with people that have let go of their ego, and it's not the game that they're playing. I think that oftentimes jealousy gets into it, into where somebody's successful and they go, oh, that person's so lucky, and they they're just takers. We haven't done a good job of educating our teams of the importance of what value we create, the risk taking that we do, and getting that out into the community. And so that guilt kind of takes over. It's like sometimes, I've been, I just wrote, I write every month a different article, and I was feeling kind of where I should be doing more. And when I wrote the article, and if you read it, you can, I don't know if you give that information out, but you can go to my website and you can read it at the Comic Club. And when I wrote it, I was feeling that feeling like I should really be doing more. And then I stopped and I, kind of had a little coaching moment with myself, by the way. I just said, the hell are you thinking about? And I did the list of the things that we're doing, and I'm feeling good about it. I don't feel guilty. I mean, I generate millions and millions and millions of dollars of payroll tax and payroll and all the different things that we do. That's pretty incredible. And I'm proud of it. And I keep my money invested, and especially for all of us that have gone through, and a lot of the listeners are people that are entrepreneurs, they're risk takers. And we're going through a pandemic. We're going through this whole shift in society and all these rule changes and things that we're trying to adapt and trying to forecast out what it's going to look like in the future. Are we going to think about the commercial office people? Like, I have a really dear friend of mine who had, hundreds of buildings that are, that he would, I don't know how many millions of square feet he has, but a lot. And that's all flipped upside down.
Yeah, commercial real estate's getting an ass beating. Yeah.
There's an IBM center, I think, up in Toronto that's 800,000 square feet in downtown Toronto. And they have, I can't remember, but they only have their essential employees going in every day. You know how many essential employees that in 800,000 square feet that they have going into the building? 20.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
The cost they each get their own floor. Yeah, nuts. They each get their whole floor. Yeah, they get a private. Yeah. Real quick, too, do you mind centering just for people watching on video?
Oh, what am I doing here?
You're good. You're kind of leaning out of frame. All good. You're having fun. You're loose. I like it. Just keep that looseness in the frame, and we're good to go. Yeah. That's actually a good point. Educating our teams and. Like I remember from experience from, my food truck manufacturing company background, because you helped me a lot with different things and challenges I was having. I remember it was at the point where I was running it into the ground, which was most of the company. And, we had built up all this debt that I personally guaranteed. And I just remember I had maybe $400,000 in debt with this business, and we were just having tons of issues. And I maybe had cash. I maybe had like 50 or 100 grand in my savings. So I'm like, I'm in negative 300,000 right now, and I had to work my way out of that shit. Like, it took me a really long time. I had to call up each person we owed money to, settle the debt, work on some payment plans, like something. But like, that was very stressful, and those times like that, it makes you sick to your stomach, because it's like, how do I even start this? I'm like, I have to bring in new revenue. I have to make the company profitable. I have to, and fortunately I was able to get out of it somehow with just, great mentorship, probably some luck, some resilience.
You had a vision, you had a desire, you had, you were asking yourself the right questions, And if you hadn't done that, like I just was talking to somebody yesterday, I said, it's a line everybody's using nowadays. I started using if is half a life. I started using that 25 years ago, and I always say I wrote an article about it. I should have copyrighted that line because I used it a long time ago. So if you spell out life, it's LIFE, right? So if is half of of life. And I know I got off on that one, but the line that a lot of people are using nowadays is you can't get to where you want to get to if you don't know where it is that you want to go to, right? And it's that simple. So you made a decision back then that you said, look, this isn't working for me. I remember you had partners that you guys weren't in congruency with one another. And it just was, you actually hated to wake up to go deal with that every single day. But when you reflect backward, when you look back on those lessons that you learned, do you ever, you calling those guys saying, I can't afford to pay you. Can you give me a deal? Can you do this? Can we do a payment term? Having $400,000 on personal guarantee on the note that they can call you and the bank calls you, that flips your life upside down. So it would be ashamed if you didn't go back and reflect on those feelings, those emotions. Take the opportunity via that experience to learn both the good and the bad out of that experience. And that it's there.
Yeah.
And I believe that the universe, and we call it God if you want, but the universe works in mysterious ways, and it will always keep delivering you that lesson until you learn it. So take the time to learn the lesson, whether it's positive, negative. Typically on the negative ones, when they come back, if you don't take the time now to learn from that, what you got out of that, and how it can formulate your values, your whatever, your viewpoints on business, it's going to come back and it's going to be bigger.
Yeah.
The universe has a way of delivering that. I'm telling you, and I'm telling you from experience. I've had a few of those. And so now when something like that happens, I stop and I go, all right, there's something in here I'm supposed to pull out of this. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do the thinking on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I guess I do agree with you that we should maybe educate our teams more. And I don't want credit. I don't want a pat on the back. More than anything, I just think we should have a mutual understanding. Team members and ownership and businesses are symbiotic. We both need each other to move forward, right? So it's I don't, like, I'm no better, they're no better. I'm not, like, we're symbiotic in a relationship. And I guess there were so many days I woke up and I'm like, why am I doing any of this? And I had probably 15 employees at the time. I'm like, I could just walk away today. My headaches go away. I'm still going to be in debt regardless. So, like, who cares about that? Like, that, I'm kind of fucked there, you know, like one way or the other. Like, but somehow I was able to, it took me probably a couple years to finally get through that. And, we worked our way up and increased our revenue and stuff. Like, I could have easily quit. My employees would have lost their job. Those vendors never would have been paid back. And some of them were smaller vendors that would have really hurt, right?
Hurt.
If you're a giant company, $100,000 or whatever is not as big of a deal. When you're a mom and pop business, $100,000, like, you can shut your doors with that. So I somehow toughed it through. And there's so many stories like that from just about every business person I know. And I guess it's just like, I would like more of society to understand that, hey, like, now my business is doing really well. I'm very fortunate. And we're grateful to have a great team. We do our best to pay very competitive wages and offer benefits and give our team members flexibility and do the best things that we can to just be as respectful and grateful for our team as possible. But to get to the point that you're at and that what I'm at, like, we went through a lot of bullshit to get here, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it was some really rough times.
Well, I would say that with employees, I think we assume that they actually understand the economics of a business, and oftentimes they don't. So we had an experience, we're an industrial distributor, and one of the guys who was a key inside guy said, "Oh, that's unbelievable. We just got $100,000 order. You got $100,000 to spend." And I'm like looking at him, I go, "What do you mean I have $100,000 to spend? The order is $100,000. He goes, "Well, yeah, but and I'm like, I'm dumbfounded that he said it. And I go, "What do you mean, $100,000? He goes, "Well, yeah, you got $100,000. I go, "Well, first off, we have to pay for the material because we're buying and reselling. So we have to pay for the goods. So let's say we made 25% on it. That's $75,000. Now I have $25,000 left. And guess what I have to do now? I have to pay for freight. I have to pay for the warehouse. I have to pay for the people. I have to pay for the gas, electricity, the phones, and all the rest of it. And so by the end of it, of the $100,000, I'm kind of happy if there's $5,000 left, 5% in the industrial distribution business. Maybe you can do more. We actually average more than that. But I mean, that's kind of the industry standard. And so, but people in their mind think, God, I have $100,000 to spend. No, I have $5,000 to spend if I'm running my business really good.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
so
it's crazy shit. I remember a similar story, except that it ended up being a little mini disaster. we had this policy when I first launched Prestige, and this is all the little things we, dumb young business guys like me have to learn the hard way. I was like, so the team members don't lose track of the materials and the build out and stuff. There would be every truck we would just like truck we'd be manufacturing, we would like staple the entire client contract to the vehicle so they could they see the client's name. I thought that was going to be good. Like there's there's all the details of the agreement, the projected end date. So like they're kind of held accountable too. But what started happening is they're like, wow, this truck was 150 grand. Jeremy's making like all this money off us. Like, and it started like building tension. And then like I think one day I got a new car and it was just like a lease. It was like a $500 a month lease payment, and they're just like, there was like a little mini walkout. They just think I'm making all this money. I'm like, dude, just the insurance policy, we were spending like 50 grand a year just in insurance to even bring the trucks in our facility. And then there was just expense after expense. I mean, we had
same story.
We had a little bit of a higher margin, but we had to explain that. And then if they go, and we're only making good margins in the custom manufacturing world if we stay on time with our labor, which no one ever stays on time with their labor in anything custom. So we're like, cool, if we finish this on time, maybe we'll net 15%. Well, we never finished it on time. So, by the time, I mean, we were in single digit profits all the time. So we have these big revenue, we're doing millions in revenue, but, we're do 5 million in revenue and net less than 10% of it. It's like, It's a stressful business model. That's also very capital intensive too. So you net 10%, and then it's not like I just have all that in cash sitting around. I have vendors I'm paying.
The business is going, feed me. I need more.
We need to invest in stuff like that. Yeah, it was just crazy. So I learned the hard way to not staple contracts with what we were paying or what clients were paying to our vehicles. And instead we did the same thing without the price point on it moving forward. But yeah, it's all about just understanding, and that's what the learning lesson was for me, is not just assume people understand, because I probably wouldn't if I was in their place, and I would help them understand. And I would I even had to tell them, like, guys, I didn't buy this car. I remember I was like, this is a $500 a month lease. Like, it's like, you guys could probably all afford this car if you wanted to. Like, it's not.
Yeah, when I first did my quote unquote luxury car, when I was back in, I was 35 or 36 years old, so over 30 years ago.
They had cars back then.
Yeah,
it was a Model T.
Yeah. No, but I bought that. I did a lease on a Lexus, the nice full size sedan Lexus, and it was a great car, and I've had them ever since, by the way. So it's just a great quality car, and especially, now they're manufacturing some in the United States and all that politically correct stuff. Especially when I'm selling American stuff, so I have to.
They put the floor mats probably in the U.S.
Probably.
Yeah.
But what I remember when it was just this big breakthrough, because I didn't want to have a luxury car. And I always worried about, what are the teams going to say, and the employees. It was the way we say it back then, but now our teams. And the Lexus, if you look back, and it might be still the same, I haven't looked at it for a while, but on the windshield, Lexus is manufactured by Toyota. And I said, all I said was, I'm driving a damn Toyota. Get over it. It's like, so that was my way to deal with the guilt of having something nicer. But as you go through that stuff becomes easier and easier. And I really think that people in general, like especially the team people and the rest of it, if you're communicating properly, and I always say the 3 most important attributes, and you know what I say it over and over. In any business you're building, the 3 most important attributes are communication, communication, communication. There's just sometimes an overload of information, and if you give them too much information without the understanding of the other, they're going to fill in their story and they're going to fill in the blanks. And that's what when we're managing or leading people, we have to really have a really good awareness of that. So I'm not afraid to talk about a lot of things, but in the process of that, they have to be ready to receive it, or educated or understanding the whole picture. Because if they don't, that feeling of having everything on the line where you have everything on the line. And I lived my whole entrepreneurial life that way up until probably 15 years ago, when I finally didn't have to personal guarantee everything I was doing. And I went over that plateau. And even though I had great growth and cash and building cash, it was really, it feels pretty good when you're not having to have that hanging over your head, right? And I didn't lose my motivation. My motivation didn't shift once I got rid of my personal guarantees. I still work as, the same level that I worked back when I had it. So it wasn't something that I needed to motivate me. I'd rather use something else to motivate me than, bank debt. So.
Yeah. And what I should have done, and you're right, communication is key. Looking back, and if that ever happens again, what I will do exactly is sit everybody down, and I'll just, at the time, I had 2 employees getting paid a higher salary than me. I would have been like, hey, there's 2 people that actually earn more on this team. You guys can figure out which ones those are, and show like, hey, we have debt. We have I think if I just would have sat everybody down and explained it, like, hey, we're all on the same mission. Okay. Yeah, but I didn't. Yeah. I didn't, and things got worse because of it. And then maybe eventually I did, kinda. But yeah, I mean that's what I would do modern day, is just nip it in the butt and be like, hey guys, this is business. We're all on the same team. I'm not making millions of dollars off this. I'm making a wage comparable to many of you. I'm trying to help us all win here,
Yeah, and I think, Jeremy, the side of just, that's where I call adult communication. So I'm not afraid to have that now, and that's where you've grown too as a person. If you have that discussion that you should have had, you always have to be ready for their reaction, right? Whether it's good or bad. So it's that whole Newton's law deal. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you communicate the truth and they go, well, I don't like that. All right, well, that's what it is. So now life's about choices. So what's your choice? You put it back onto them, right? And that's a thing that really is a really powerful thing. If you're listening on that, is like, what I mean by that is, when I communicate, if you're married or your partner, or your business partner, or significant other, and you have to really, when you say something, there's going to be a reaction, and you have to be willing to receive that reaction. Yeah. And a lot of people are so afraid. It's like going in and asking for the order. We have salespeople, and they forget to ask for the order because they're afraid somebody might say no. So they leave hoping that they're going to get the order. So they have this false sense, I did a great call and stuff, and yeah, that looks good. And then I say, well, did you ask for the order? And they go, well, no. I go, well, okay, so let's talk about something else, because or let's go to sales training so you understand it's okay to ask for the order. They're just afraid of the reaction that the person might say no.
It's also okay to hear no. It's actually, and that's where my mindset's evolved, and that's what sales training has helped me with, dating has helped me with, relationships in general. You want to hear yes or no as quick as possible, because yes is obviously easier and better to hear typically, but at least if they tell you no, it may sting for a minute, but you can move on and save a lot of time and energy. That on the fence is what you don't want in business, relationships, anything. Clarity, Brene Brown, all the time. That's her big thing. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. The best thing I can look for in my life is clarity.
The thing about it, when you're 30 years old, you're and it's just age. It's like you said earlier, well, it's that age. I just had to go through it and learn it this way. It's the way you do it. And there's a lot of truth to that. I have children, and, they go, Dad, you told me this, but I did it anyways. And you know what? You were right. And I go, yeah, well, now it's that experience is really powerful. But the thing is, you get older. So when I look at time is really precious. You're 64. It's in there, and I plan on going right up until, I'm hoping we're cutting a deal. I'm 84, 20 years from now, and you're 50, and we're still doing deals, and you're going to be pissed when I die because I didn't finish what I said I was going to do, right? I love that idea. So I never look at retirement as a solution to starting a happy life. I live a happy, great life right now. Every single day I do. And I have my moments sometimes, like in every, maybe not everybody has it, but I have my moments sometimes where I might be a little like, what the hell is that all about? But that time thing is huge. And for you 30-year-olds and 25-year-olds and so on, it's like you can kind of get lulled to sleep because there's you just think, well, I'm 30, but there's a lot of time, because you'll see a guy like me, 64 and still active and doing things, and you go, geez, I got a lot of time. So we have a tendency to start pissing away time. Stop pissing away time. Get a plan, get an idea, get some goals, get the right habits to support the goals that you're trying to accomplish. That's the next workshop that we're doing, because oftentimes we're writing these big grandiose goals, but we don't have the right tools to get us to those goals, right? So.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely, and I actually want to talk about Comma Club a bit, but one thing I do want to give you a compliment, which I know compliments about you for me are very rare, so we'll make sure it's recording here. So,
oh my God, I'm going to start, let me get a Kleenex out so when I start to cry.
Yeah, he's tearing up right as we speak. No, but something I learned from you, and at the time, Dave, I thought it was really stupid, I'll be honest, but then like 2 years later, I realized how crucial this was. So you probably don't even remember. I've told like 20 people this story. It was maybe like 4 years ago. You were supposed to connect. You were at your place in the Bahamas, and you were supposed to connect me with somebody like via text or email for something. And I was like, hey, any update on that text intro or email intro? And you were like, Jeremy, I don't work when I'm in the Bahamas. I'm like, Dave, it'll take 3 seconds. I'm like, just make the text intro, please. And you're like, Jeremy, I just don't work when I'm in the Bahamas. Like, you had that really strict way of disconnecting and just saying, hey, if I'm going to relax and spend time with my family or whatever, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to, because before you know it, and then it took me a couple years, and I'm like, oh, that's why Dave wanted to do that, because like I was on a trip or something and someone was bugging me about business stuff, and I'm just like, I just want to clear my mind and relax right now. So you're so strict with your time management that even like we talked for probably 20 minutes, but it was the work stuff specifically. You're like, no, I'm not going to make this intro while I'm in the Bahamas. And I thought at the time, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Yeah. But a couple years later, I realized like that's so important to be able to, because the business stuff, whether you made it, maybe it was a Friday, whether you made it Friday or Monday or next week, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, but
right, the days don't matter to me. Yeah,
being present with your family and having fun and just enjoying your vacation or whatever you were doing. So that is a learning lesson I actually took away from you, and I still, and a lot of people I don't think understand why I do what I do. Like I have cleaning people clean my house. I have my food delivered once a week. I buy a lot of the same colored shirts, and they're just different, so I don't have to spend a lot of time spending like what I'm gonna wear. Like I'm doing everything I can to buy back time, so I feel like I learned a lot of those lessons from you. So
yeah, well that part, Jeremy, is it's again I always say this, so, and I think I said it at your talk, but successful people have successful habits, and unsuccessful people have unsuccessful habits, and defining that. And what I'm really honing in on is the side of it is when I'm disciplined to that, right? And it doesn't mean like I plan my day so this is a fun day. I mean I have fun every day. I have fun in the business. I love what I do, right? And that's that saying, doing what I love and loving what I do. And so I love what I do, so I'm happy. I mean, it's so I don't have a day that says, okay, I'm going to shut off the prick, I'm going to shut off the unhappy guy, and now I'm just going to go be happy and be present with my team or with my family and just be, or with my grandkids. No, I'm happy, I'm happy doing this, right? I mean, and so it's interesting. So for clarity, that day it was just, no, I'm staying focused, I'm being present. Yeah. And when you have minds like most entrepreneurs have, we think, oh, I can just flip it on just a little bit. And I call out bullshit. You can't do it. You can't flip it on just a little bit. Now, we set the rules, and rules can be broken, right? But when I break, and I do break the rule, I mean, I will break the rules, but I break it with a mindset. I break it with a decision. I just don't let it, I mean, I sit and go, okay, let's analyze a little bit. I mean, not like, you know me, it's like that might take me 15 seconds to process it or whatever. But, I just ask myself a few questions, and it's important if there's a timing thing. And we have more of that over the last, I have more of that. It's been a challenge for me because we're dealing in all these different time zones. So my business partner and friend Barry and England, right? Well, he's 5 hours ahead on East Coast time, so he's already at 3 in the afternoon right now, and or we deal in our in Malaysia or China, they're already at nighttime. It's 10:30 at night. And so you have more of that, and some of that stuff that what I'm doing at the level I'm playing at, and some of it, it's I get a little bit more of that. So, but I'm still pretty good at saying that.
Again, at the time, and it just takes, people
Takes
may never
time.
learn it, and it took me, fortunately, I learned it a couple years later. Now I get frustrated when I'm out. And you know what else you used to tell me too when I was younger? Like when I'd be around the comic club guys, you'd be like, Jeremy, like, calm down on all the business talk. Like, you can't be like talking about business all the time. It makes you seem too desperate and just like, and I would be like, no, I just love business. I'm not trying to be desperate. And now I get that feeling when people are around me, like talking about business all the time. I'm like, it took me time, and I'm like, I would literally be like, it would go off a switch in my brain. I'd just be like, now I know exactly how Dave felt. I'm like, I see. And it took me time to figure that out. And now, but business is I feel like the easiest part of life compared to quality relationships. If we can have common ground and just talk about shit and joke around and have fun, and then there's opportunity to do business, that's going to be seamless, because it's probably going to be a win-win for both of us if we can do something. That's the easy part. Getting along with people that you trust and can truly enjoy dinner with, not just be there because you're made to be there, but like truly enjoy time together. Business will come easy.
You don't see the dollar signs flashing in the person's eyes. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people want to come up and they want to get to know you, and and I really have a high emotional IQ, and I have intuition, and it's both a blessing and a curse, because when I trust my intuition, the curse part is I really trust human beings and I trust people. And so I'm really protective, because when I read that first feeling, when I see that, I trust that now. In the old days, 20 years ago, I would fight that a little bit, and I would still let that person that intuitively I thought, this guy, woman, I don't know if this is the right fit. There was something that wasn't hitting, and I just didn't like it. But then I let them in anyways, and every single time I should have trusted my intuition. So learn how to listen to that feeling, that emotion, and a lot of us entrepreneurs really have that keen awareness, and we just have to trust it, right?
Yeah.
But when you're sitting and you're having to get the deal, you have to get the deal, and there's like, you're thinking, well, if I get the deal, I'm going to earn this much, and you're thinking about that, or I could get this. People sense the dollar signs, and they sense the desperation, not desperation to the degree of life or death, but they get that feeling. So I just always kind of back out of that. And I find myself, like when we've done some of these new deals that we've been doing, I'm terrible at going out and playing the game of receiving, getting investors. I'm terrible at it. I'll always be terrible at it. And you know why I always will be terrible? I don't want to change it. I have no desire to get into that world where I'm pitching deals, going after money, doing this stuff, because I just don't like it. I like the other stuff. I like building it. I don't like that stuff. And so, and partly is because of what I just explained. I don't like to be the guy sitting on the other side of the table going, pitching the deal. having dollar signs flashing in my eyes. I just don't like it. So anyways, a little sidetrack on that. One other thing you said is about, it's a go-to line, and I know I've said it to you a lot, but when people, in the team and they're asking, well, you get this and you're driving a new car and you're doing this, and, and then you have friends that are coming back into your world, and a lot of you guys that are listening where you've had the success and you're running your businesses and you're doing better and better in your business, and people then start to say, wow, you're so lucky. You're such a lucky guy, Jeremy. Wow. And they don't know the truck story. They don't know going to bed and not sleeping at night and calling the creditors and they don't know that part of the luck that you had. And I always remind people, and I always say, yeah, I might have some luck, but I've never met a lazy, lucky person. People, you said, and when you were talking about how you were able to manage your way out of that mess, you managed your way out of it because you worked yourself out of it. You created the relationships you needed. You made the hard phone calls you had to do. You came to grips with your ego of not, being the hot shot and all of a sudden going, wow, I kind of have this kind of screwed up a little bit, right?
Big time.
And you had to
up.
deal with that, right? So that's the opportunity to learn and grow.
100%. And I don't hear lucky too often from people in my circle because no one in my circle thinks that way, but I have heard that from people that, to your point, don't know me very well, and maybe people I went to high school with or whatever.
Right.
And just
family, maybe
even family here and there, but relationships I have, I have been very fortunate, I'll say, compared to almost anybody I know, actually. Like, people will ask me how I'm able to do it. I've built a great network of just guys and gals a few steps ahead of me. Like, you're, a few years older than me, you're head of business than me, you have, more wealth than me. I'm forbidden to ask specifically how much on this, per your request on the form, but you're ahead of, I'm just playing around. I told you I'd joke about that on the thing.
I deserve it. But I don't mind sitting down individually with people and talking about business plans and what I am and what I do, etc. Right? So not to the whole world.
I joked around with Dave, so everybody that's listening, we have a form that everybody fills out before with just like a headshot and the links to their website and stuff like that. And there's hey, are there any topics you want to absolutely avoid? And people typically have stuff like, hey, I don't want to get into this about a relationship, or I've had a few people say they don't want to talk about finances and stuff. And one of Dave's was not specific finances. So I told him right when it goes live, I was going to ask him real specific questions, joking around.
Well, the only reason I said that is because I know you.
Yeah.
You're just, you're, and part of what you're just talking about, you are an open book. And that is an authentic, great quality to have. People aren't intimidated by that. People open up to you on that stuff, which is one of the reasons why, and the key reasons, my observation is that's why you were able to build really nice relationships. That's why you have that, because people aren't threatened by you that way. And where some, and that's a wonderful quality to have. And I say, you have to be likable. I always ask the question when somebody comes in or we have sales team, and I go, or our sales team, well, regardless of the business, and I look at the person, I go, would I buy from that person? Regardless of their credentials or whatever. Are they just, we have super smart, we have engineers, and we have, on the chemical engineers and scientists and inventors, super smart people. But I always go, would I want to deal with that person?
Yeah.
And sometimes, some of them you have to have, they're so smart, you put them in the corner and you box them in there and they're just brilliant, and that's how they'd rather be. They don't want to have interaction, and you learn how to play with that or play that game. But, so that likability quality is so important.
100%. And I've just been super fortunate to have guys like you, guys like Bob, multiple that you don't know. Even the guy that when I was 21, he initially invested in my business, which, we're not, on great terms now, but he put a lot of trust in me at a young age. And people have said not everybody can just build these relationships. And I'm just, it's not luck. Well, they can if they work on it. That's the thing. It's not, I'm constantly reading books on how to improve in communication, and also learning from certain guys like you to like better myself to be like, plus just the more I learn, I don't have much in common to talk about with like a 20 something year old anyway, you know, which gets me into a lot of trouble because I love like mid 20s women, but oftentimes we don't have a ton to talk about. So, but yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to comment on that, but I
yeah,
kind of remember those days.
you know what I'm talking about. But anyway,
I do. I really do. And I think it's important. When I say when I said you can't or they can't, I didn't mean that they can't get to that place.
Yeah.
If you're sitting today and you don't have that skill set or you don't have the self-awareness to want to learn and grow, to want to understand that, to start to it's like one of my top values, my highest values is to always be learning and growing. I've read 2 books this week already, great books. And, and I looked at it and I'm thinking, wow, I've been coaching this stuff and been talking about it for a long time. And I touched on it already about habits, but a really good book is called Atomic Habits. I have it on audio and I can look up the author if you want me to. But what he did is the connecting of the goals. So you have a goal, but you may not have the right capacity or capabilities to achieve it. You don't have the right process to be able to do, the right habit processes to be able to get that goal. So it might be to get in good shape. Well, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is your habit is to go and have, a piece of toast with jam on it and, some pancakes, that, before, you might have to change that habit, so the right habit process to be able to deliver the goal that you're looking for. And I sat and I was thinking about learning and growing. I go, wow, it's interesting. I've always flirted and talked about that for 25 years, and I'm big on habits. I have my daily morning habits. I have my daily morning question I ask, and all the rest of it. I do that stuff, but have I built the processes behind it to make sure that I actually can deliver what I'm hoping to get?
Yeah. 100%.
Big thing. Learning and growing, big thing.
100%. And something you taught me as well, and we just have these I didn't plan on giving you all these compliments, Dave. I didn't write them down in my notes, but they're just coming to mind. They're authentic, honest compliments. Guys like you, I've learned, are always paying for people and paying for stuff when you're going out to dinner. People expect you to pay, and I know we joke about it a lot, like every time someone pays for dinner now, but I've gone out of my way, and that's what I've learned from you. Like, I probably half the time we have a meal together, I will pay. We pay 50-50, and I've learned that with a lot of people. So, for anyone listening as well that just is looking to create, strong relationships from people they can learn from or grow from or whatever, like starting out with paying for their lunch or coffee or dinner, whether it's $50, $200, just suck it up and pay for it. And because that flips the script a little bit. Like, and even for me now, when like I feel like I'm even starting to be expected to pay oftentimes, when somebody's like, hey, don't, like, I remember that person paid the rest of our relationship. Like, seriously, like I'll be like, hey, you paid for my dinner 4 years ago. Like, because it's so rare, I remember it, where someone's like, hey, I'll pay for this, and I think that's really important too. It's just not expecting. You were giving me time, especially early on in our relationship. I was a young kid that was just talking about business all the time, and it was probably kind of annoying, and that's the least I could do, right?
Well, here's the thing. And I wish I could remember the author or the professional guy, it's like longtime guys, it could have been, the Napoleon Hill or the old, Earl Nightingale, all Jim Rohn, all the old, Jim. I think there's a Jim Brown or Ed Brown, guys that a long time back in the, 60s, 70s, 80s, the motivational speakers. And one of them was Jim Rohn. He just said, if you're out there, and he said, and you wanted to, your goal is to be a millionaire, say. And he goes, the first thing you should do or one of the first things you should do is take a millionaire out to lunch, buy that person lunch. And I've never forgotten it. So when I'm in those situations, and And not to, and I also remember, and this is important because I love to be a real person and likable. And so when we're together, Jeremy, and or somebody else that I don't know, I know a lot of people that they really think that you're so lucky, not you specifically, but as everybody listening, you're so lucky that I'm spending time with you, right? So here I am, worth quite a bit of dough, and but I'm spending time with you, and you're lucky I'm doing that because I'm such a special guy. I don't want to be that guy either. But I also want to have somebody on the flip side of it that really understands the value and how I can help them and, make a difference in their lives. And so it's kind of this, juggling act a little bit. I don't want to act like I'm so special that you're so lucky, but on the other side, I want you to understand that it's a special time that we have together. But I always now, the way I balance that is you've taught me a lot of stuff too. I mean, taught me about, just the openness of what you guys are challenged with, the desire, how it's hard to and especially with males, and I guess it's females too nowadays. I mean, it's that 20 to 30 range that you're chasing, you're trying to be something, then you get into that, especially the 30, 35-year-olds, and they're still chasing and it's not hitting for them. We've talked a lot about that over, like your peers and the people. And so, I can learn as much from you as you can from me.
Yeah.
Right. And you keep me young. You keep me driving to say, I like to have 30-year-olds in my life. I like 40-year-olds in my life. I like 50-year-olds in my life, and because of that, of that age and that awareness of the generation. So I think it's powerful.
Yeah,
it can be powerful.
I completely agree. And again, I'm starting to see that with younger people in my life. And it is a juggling act because I don't want, maybe it is my ego talking a little bit, and I have to be honest with myself about that. But if I was 20 and wanted to be where I was at today, I would do what it took to be around me. And I would be asking them questions. Hey, how can I help you? How can I, meet people, I would, and that, because that's how I was at 20, and that's one of the reasons I am, where I am today, which, I don't think is anything too special, but I've worked really hard and I've built something.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
yep.
we have some great things going. And
you're building a great foundation too, by the way.
We are. Our e-com store, proudpatriots.com, is doing really well right now. I shared some of the numbers with you, but we're doing really well, so really grateful. We have a great team, a lot of American-made products, by the way, so it's a cool brand. But I want to chat with you, too, about I know we have Comma Club coming up, so I'll see you in Dallas next week. The last quarter was the first Comma Club that I missed in, 4 years or something, because we just didn't have it because of COVID. We fortunately got the Q1 in, was it end of February, last week of February?
Maybe towards the beginning of it, before it was all getting all crazy and hectic. I mean, it was still, people knew it was out there, but they weren't panicking yet, right?
Yeah, so, no one was wearing masks or anything, but people were talking about it at that point, and we were in Vegas, I remember. Can you share a little bit about, your background in coaching and what inspired you to get in coaching the way you do? Because something, and again, I swear to God, this is just too many compliments. I just don't get used to this, Dave. Something I value about your coaching is you've had success in business, then you're coaching, not I'm a coach that's makes me a little bit of money and now I'm just a professional coach. I appreciate that you've had business success and now that you coach, which is why I'm still in your program out of lots of programs I've been cycling through the last 4 or 5 years. So can you talk about just kind of what, made you start getting into coaching and why you're, as passionate about it as you are?
Well, I think a couple of things. I was an athlete, and when I was a kid in sports, I had and I won't go into a lot of the detail, but just to set the stage, I had a very dysfunctional childhood. When my dad left when I was 13, it was a great day for me because I didn't get beat up anymore. So that was a good start. but sports always kept me on a great path. I had a coach when I was 10 years old, and I was still wetting the bed. I pronounced my T's as F's, so if I saw a truck come by, I'd go look at the fuck come by. I just had issues, right? And not quite at 10. That I think I got over that around 6 or 7 years old. That the speech thing, but and Coach Botner. I was 10 years old. I made the Little League Major Leagues, as 2 10-year-olds would make the team. And he came up and he put his arm on my shoulders. He didn't know my family. He didn't know how I'd have to jump out the window at 2 a.m. when my dad would come home drunk. And, we'd go through this whole cycle, a lot. And he didn't know that stuff. He didn't know I was wet in the bed. And he put his arm, but he had a sense. And he put his arm on my shoulder and he said, son, you're going to be okay. You're going to do just fine. You're going to be okay. And it wasn't like at the baseball. And this was a guy who was Mike Botner's, his son, and he was on the team. And his dad was a plumber. So Coach Botner was a plumber. He had big mitts of hands, and we'd throw the baseballs hard and he'd catch it barehanded. I was always, wow, this guy's a tough guy. He's just a tough looking, it's a strong guy. And that resonated so powerful with me on years later when I reflected, and I wrote about it in one of my books about, Live to Tell Your Story. I wrote about Coach Botner, and I said how people in our lives can impact us that we don't know they're impacting us. We don't know. I didn't know at 10 that was going to be significant in my life. And when I hit 12, 13, I still hold the Little League record at the park, and I'll hold it for the rest of my life for the most home runs hit by a 12-year-old at, Crystal Lake Park, because why? They closed the park down. It's gone. So nobody can beat me there. Not at that park anyways.
That's my mission in life, to bring that park back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but the reason I digress that far back is to say that started to set the format. Sports is really important to me. At Comic Club, we use a tool called the ColbyCorp.com, Kathy Colby, a brilliant way to look at your brain. You have 3 parts of your brain: cognitive, which is your thinking; affective, which is your feeling and your personality; and cognitive, which is your doing, your striving instincts. And so I was never great at school because I don't like to do a lot of fact finding. I don't like a lot of follow through. I just like bright, new, shiny things. I like new things. I like change. I like vision stuff. And so anyways, as we go through that, I looked at the power of, the impact, and I go back and I looked at the impact that he had on my life. Then I looked at other things. So sports kept me out and kept me at least motivated enough to get through school, get grades, go through college, get through that stuff. And so as I did that, I recognized that I wasn't a good head coach, right? I was a great assistant coach. Could have been the head coach because I know leadership, but I didn't want to deal with all the parents. I didn't want to deal with all the stuff. I just wanted to deal with the athlete. And so I was a goalie, and one of the first, I was back in 1974, I went up to Flin Flon, Canada, which is 500 miles north of Winnipeg. And that's where, in those days, where all the pros were coming out of that junior program in that league that they had. And so I was a good player. And I came back, and so I kind of started just working with the kids, and I always coached all my kids, whether girls softball. My son Rob, who went on to be a Division I athlete at the University of Minnesota, you can look him up. He was first and 3-time athlete at the University of Minnesota in like 1998 or 99, something like that. He's played both football, baseball, and hockey in 1 year, and so it's pretty incredible feat. So really good athlete. I coach and I coach friends, and I coach junior teams, and I did that stuff, and I love that part about teaching young people and being that coach and having the impact like Coach Botner had on me. Because I've had impact on young people that have gone on to be successful. I get the phone calls and saying, Coach, I remember when you said this to me when I was 11 years old. I have a couple of people in our team at Baldwin that are actually, I coached them when they're 8, 9, 10 years old, that are great team members and very, very successful at my company, and, out in outside sales, and, there's sales engineers. And so that led to where, as I started to be in my entrepreneurial world, and I hit in my 30s, I started going to a program called the Strategic Coach. And I love the program. It's still very, very, very successful program now. And lots of entrepreneurs and that go there. I was a little bit unique in the sense that there are more financial services, wealth management population that they coached, right, than people who sold the chain and sprockets. And so when I got into that, I really liked it. And Dan Sullivan's a great thinker. He's still around, does a great job, and has built a really, really great, successful business. And maybe some of your listeners have been solicited or marketed, from them and whatever, And so I started going to there, and I was there for, I think I was there almost 22 years of coaching from Dan. And then about 4 or 5 years into it, they asked me to be a facilitator for his group. And then eventually they asked me to be their coach and a coach for them. And I started coaching for them. And I coached for them for 14 years. And I think I was their first $1 million coach, that other than Dan. And then there was another coach there, a good guy, Lee Brower, that I started to coach their $1 million clients. So you had to earn $1 million or more to be in the room to be coached by me.
And income,
and I had to
$1 million in income. So that's a pretty elite group, yeah.
Yeah, and so then I had to qualify. I had to earn $1 million or more to be able to qualify and to be able to go coach people like that, because there is a difference in mindset, right? So when you were first starting as being an entrepreneur, you might come in and say, well, geez, I have to hire an assistant, and it's going to cost me, I'm thinking about hiring a part-time assistant, versus you meet guys in our coaching group now, they come in and say, I'm thinking about opening up and buying this facility that's going to cost me $25 million, or whatever. I mean, there's a difference there in what they're experiencing, right? And so, I like to think that I can blend the groups nicely, and I pull out of those high-end guys and help the other people. Then so we have great synergy in the room. And so the coaching is just something that I love to do. I think I'm an anomaly in the sense that I actually am really good at business too. So it's not that I suck at business, but I know it, but I suck at it. So I'm going to go teach other people, right? I know it, I practice it, I practice what I preach, which sometimes is difficult because I'm telling you to do something. I better be doing it myself.
Yeah, those who can't do teach. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's some truth to that.
No,
right?
For sure. And no, I appreciate the sharing and the vulnerability as well. It definitely helps bring some context. So, can you share? So, I'm excited about my first Comma Club in about 6 or 7 months, whatever the math is. Too old for math now. So,
yeah, it's been.
What are we going to be? Anything new or exciting to add to this quarter? And before you answer that too, just so people know, I think it's important that you charge money, and it's a decent amount, nothing crazy compared to different groups I've been a part of, but it costs money. You have to make an investment to be a part of Comma Club, and I value it way more because I invest. If I didn't invest, we spend a whole day on ourselves. It's an 8-hour day. I'd probably be slacking a little bit more, texting a little bit more, maybe taking a few phone calls, walking outside. When you're investing a lot to be in that room, you typically will value it a little bit more. So I can tell you, I've been in Comma Club for, I believe, 4+ years now, and it has been super impactful in a lot of ways. And the investing and your growth portion of it is super important. So whether people want to join a group like Comma Club or really grow in any way if you're not making some type of investment. Even if it's taking that guy or gal out to lunch, that's the millionaire. You're investing the $100 in lunch. Like, investing in your growth for me has just been extremely impactful. But back to Comic Club, what do we got on the plans for this quarter?
It's interesting. I was on a call yesterday with a company a Canadian company, and they have a pending order. I can't give the name. It's not appropriate, but it's trust me, they a big Canadian company. Everybody would know them, and they have they buy in the hand sanitizer business. They have an order out there for probably $4 or $5 million. And so I'm talking with them about, they're asking me questions, and I'm going through this process, and I'm always remembering something that I've been taught, and I might have been my business partner, Dewa, always says it in the chemical company, is that people don't value what they don't pay for. They just don't value it. So I could give you $1 million idea for free, and you're going to treat it like it's a idea, you're going to just treat it that way. But I could give you a $5 million, or I could give you a terrible idea, absolutely horrendous idea, and charge you $5,000 for it, and you're going to try to invest, and you're going to do that horrendous idea because you have $5,000 in it. So it's just something for all the listeners to know that in your business, because what you do magically, what you're at the Comic Club, we always talk about your genius. What you do that is just why people want to be around you, people want to buy from you, people want to have you there. What you do, you don't magic, you just don't think that big a deal of it. So you just do it, and it's not a big deal to you, but others are looking at it and going, wow, that is amazing. So we're really going to hone in on that side of your genius, just so you understand it. So when you're looking at the future Jeremy, you're looking at tomorrow Jeremy, the next day Jeremy, what is it, that game that you want to play? How are you going to play that? What's important to you? Who do you want in your life? Who don't you want in your life? I mean, what kind of business deals you want in your life? Eyes will see, ears will hear what your mind is looking for. So you have to tell it that. And I think when you're hanging, what I love about the events, which is hard because everybody's going, well, why don't you just do it via, like a Zoom call or the WebEx call or, the Skype Pro calls or whatever they are now. And I go, because it's hard to have that touch. It's hard to have that. You get up to grab, a snack in the back room. You get up to use the restroom. You get up to, you have a little break. You're going to maybe touch base with your office. But in the meantime, you start talking with one of the other participants, and you go, and you get a breakthrough. They'll say, well, why are you doing it that way? And you go, well, I don't know. And then, it happens all the time. And so I love that side of it. So we're really honing in again. There's in the coaching world, it's interesting, and you know this, Jeremy, by attending as many as you have. There's certain things you have to work on all the time. You go back, and where you're at today, if I went back and I had done a concept 4 or 5 years ago with you, and I did that same concept with you today, it's going to be a different experience, because you have 4 years of experience. You have 4 years of other learning and growing, and deals that were good, deals that weren't so good. You're earning more money, so you're going to reflect a little differently now, because now when I'm saying, hey, you need to make an investment in this person or this tool or this kind of deal, you're not fighting me, because a lot of times people are fighting that idea because they don't have the money to do it with.
Yeah.
But when, you know what I mean? And so that's a big push on that. And I always, the other thing I am actually revisiting, but I've rewritten it in a whole different format, is what are your favorite excuses? So a lot of you listeners, you have your favorite excuse. Oh, I would do that, but, or I was thinking about doing that, but I can't, and so you think, and I'm going back and I'm having you take inventory. Do you have any favorite excuses you're still using, Jeremy?
I'm sure at least 100, Dave. How long do we have here?
I know.
I'm sure. I'm sure they come up all the time. All the time. Yeah.
And so going in and learning what they are to say, and then just asking, well, why do I use that? I have them when I'm going through and writing this stuff. I go through, and then I go through the concept like I'm being coached, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm still doing that. I thought I got over that 5 years ago, and I still flirt with some of those things. So those habits can creep back in. The bad habits can creep back in. That human behavior can creep back in on us, and it's just a matter of taking inventory on that. So it's, I'm really looking forward to having it. We're doing it at my really one of our clients, and he has been gracious enough to open up his facility in Dallas, and he sells cars. He sells a lot of cars.
Yeah, a lot of cars.
And he, I think the new facility is a Lincoln dealership, and it's one of the largest in the world. It's 276,000 square feet of air-conditioned dealership under roof, right? So, and we have his training facility. So we're looking forward to it. We did kind of a unique that we can control the environment better that way, all the rest of it. And we have some, it's so it won't be a huge group, but it'll be a fun group. A huge group for us, by the way, in the coaching is if we have 20, 23 people, we never go over 25, and this will be around 15, I think. So not a lot. So yeah, a lot of intimacy.
It's typically 15 to 20 people, and we're just spending a whole day working on ourselves personally and professionally, sharing with one another, being vulnerable, being open. And yeah, it's been super impactful for me. One thing I like about the excuses, and I think this is so important, like one of my biggest pet peeves I hear, the statement is, I don't have time. It's like you're just not taking accountability with that statement.
Right.
It's you're choosing not to make time is what the actual truth is.
It's your choice.
So just saying these are my excuses is the probably 50% of it, because you're taking accountability. You're not blaming it on other factors in your life.
Right.
You're saying, hey, these are excuses because of insecurity, because of fear, because of whatever it is. Like, that's the first step, is just, hey, these are excuses. I'm choosing not to make time. I have plenty of time for things I want to make time for. No one has time.
I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah, that's okay.
What's wrong with telling the truth?
Yeah, just being honest, you're not interested. Nobody has any time, but Netflix revenues are at record high. Like, obviously, people have fucking time in this country. Time. Yeah. So
there's a choice they're making to spend it, and that's, I said it. I say it a lot, but I mentioned Jim Rohn earlier. He always said, you mentioned Netflix, and I just like to always say, there's certain things I always go back to. This is one of them. Jim Rohn, when I was 19 years old, he died at 92 or 93, and I think he died 8-9 years ago. There's still a lot of information. There's companies that sell his products and all the rest of it, because he was a really good guy, great motivational guy. I don't know how well he practiced what he preached, but he was huge in my world of what he did for me. But what he always said is, remember, while you're watching television, you're watching somebody else earn their living. And so choose it wisely. And so you're sitting and you're taking that time, your time, to watch somebody else earn their living, whether it's a sporting event, it's a entertainment, a movie, or whatever. And so when I sit and I do that, I always remember that. You're
contributing to their living in many cases.
Right.
Yeah, you're supporting their living. Yeah. One thing that I learned from Comma Club 2, which was like when I was probably one of my first sessions, I won't say who it was, and that's the thing about Comma Club 2 is we share a lot of somewhat like private information, or very private. So there's a lot of privileged conversation that goes on in there, which I appreciate. But a member shared, and we look at wealthy people like they have everything figured out. And hanging out with you, Dave, I've learned that's obviously not the case.
Not
but
true.
It's the opposite. They don't have anything figured out. But one of the members had been in a business for many years, dozens of years, and they sold their business, and their whole purpose of this Comma Club was like, I haven't felt this lost or uncertain of like what I'm going to do with my life in probably my whole life. So you think like, oh, this person's wealthy, they have a lot figured out, they're super happy, but there is wealth there, but it's like, I don't even know, like they were sharing with me, like I don't even kind of know what to do in the mornings when I wake up, because I did the same thing the last 20, 30 years, and now I don't know what that morning routine
Exactly
is,
right.
And
Yeah,
even
it's so true.
And that started helping me figure out, and that I think that's an important thing to build wealth and to have the confidence that, hey, we're all just dumb humans on this earth trying to figure shit out, right? It helped me gain perspective and saying, hey, this person's wealthier than me, but they're going through challenges just like I am, and I don't think we're ever going to outgrow those challenges. And
No.
that was really
It's,
eye opening for me.
yeah. I think what you learn is you have a tendency not to give the power away when that happens. I think emotionally the power is that. So if you said something really mean, or you were trying to get, you did something that I didn't like, and you started to jab me on stuff, I'm just not going to engage in it and give you the power over me to let you impact my happiness, right? And I think that's one thing that you learn, or can be, and you can learn that when you're 25 years old too. It doesn't, you can learn that. You don't have to wait till you're 60 like some of us. But that power of in the impact, like, I know who you're talking about, and I've known. We met each other in the coaching world, and at my prior, what I was talking about earlier, and we've been best pals for, I don't know, 20 some years. I think I even officiated. Not many people know, but I went to a Catholic college, and so I went and I became an ordained Christian minister. And mostly I thought it was for a tax break. I could maybe play some tax, it's been kind of interesting because I've officiated about, I think, 6 or 8, 7 weddings, maybe 8 weddings now, and it's kind of fun for me because I do it, and it's they're more spiritually based weddings, and so it's fun. But and that's right. And he's a guy that just really has always had a great, keen sense of direction. But when you lose that identity, you lose that I'm the guy, and whether, I use that synonymous for women and men. I'm the person. I come in here and it's my business, and all of a sudden that's gone. We need to prepare for that, because that's a big part, especially us entrepreneurs. It's a big part of who we are. It's a big part of our identity. And the other thing I'd want to touch on is that for a lot of the money side of it, I think the thought is that once I have a lot of money, or I have this amount of money, whatever that your number is, that I'm not going to have problems. No, and that's like Tony Robbins. He always says, the good part about money, he said, you're still going to have problems. But I always love this line of his. He goes, you're still going to have problems, but you can arrive to your problems in style. You can pull up in a nice car. You can pull up in a limo. So, but it's still a problem. And I went through a challenge, and my daughter just 3-year anniversary where she had a brain aneurysm, and Jennifer's 39 now, and she was 36 years old, had a level 5 bleed out, was in intensive care for 60 plus days. Really, it's a miracle she's alive. 3 major strokes, 17 procedures, 3 brain surgeries, meningitis, you name it, she had it. She's walking, talking, and it's a fascinating, it's been a fascinating ride. And for her, and she's like talking to her, she's disabled to a degree that's her short-term memory, so it's hard to function. But she's not. She's like, it's like the old Jen. So she still remembers. She has her sense of humor, and it's really a positive thing. But when you go through something like that, and you see just how fragile life is, and no matter how much money I have or had, or, it didn't make an ounce of difference. So maybe I could have brought in a special doctor or whatever, but in this particular case, it was minute by minute at first, and it didn't matter. I could have come in and said, I'm going to give you $100 million to fix her. It wouldn't have mattered. And so, life is funny, and so we think, well, here I'm this big successful guy, and I have absolutely no power. None. Other than could create relationships with the team, the staff, which I did. I lived out there for 10 weeks and we were there every day. My other daughter, Michelle, who you know real well, lived and slept with her in the hospital room for all that time. And so, you know what? It's great to have money because it gives you choices. It's great to earn money, not make money. People who make money go to jail. We earn it. We create value.
Yeah.
I see. And, and so it's great to have that because I love choices. And, I have a morning question. And one of the things I try to coach people is when you wake up in the morning, what's your movie of the day? What are you trying to hope for? And my morning question is, how can I enjoy even more freedom today and help others do the same? And so you asked earlier why I go back to coaching, but I apply that freedom to all of our team in the businesses. I'm really, really geared towards results based because I want to have I want to have people that can earn a lot of money and not feel like they're trapped. And I like to have that feeling. I like to give them that freedom. And when I'm coaching people, that's what I'm trying to get into you too, is to say, no, let's plan so we can have freedom, so we can make, like you have way more freedom today than you did when you were $400,000 in debt at the truck company.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So.
Yeah, and kind of to your point about the in-person coaching, I 1,000% agree. And the gentleman that we were just referring to, what he didn't realize, and maybe I should even tell him next time I communicate with him, but like him having that challenge ended up being, as a byproduct, one of the biggest lessons for me. And like,
right.
Which is weird. And you can't predict that. That had nothing, to be clear, that had nothing to do with you, right? It had, you facilitated it, which was obviously if we wouldn't be there unless you facilitated it, but it wasn't what was on, wasn't anything you said or anything like that. He just was dealing with his thoughts. He wrote it down. He shared it with me. And that in-person kind of vulnerable connection that he shared with me was like, holy crap, this is the journey I'm on. And he's exactly where I want to be. And then he's going through these problems I think would all go away if I was there. Like that was a big breakthrough. Like there's not many sessions that you remember. There's not many conversations you remember from years. There's only a few. We maybe remember a handful a year of specific conversations. And I still remember that. And I was like, holy crap, like this is a big wake-up call for me. So yeah, I agree. Freedom is my number one value. I think is yours freedom too, number one?
Yeah, I mean, healthy and happy are really important, because if you don't have your health, it's hard to have the rest of it. But yeah, freedom, my highest values would be freedom is definitely in there. And the definition, I play that word game. You've seen me play that word game, and it's important for people to understand the power. Like when I say freedom, everybody, I remember that. Have I ever played that game with you where I say, write down the word freedom, and now I want you to write down 5 words that you associate with the word freedom. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, not phrases, other words that you associate with it. There'll be, I've done it with 20 people. I've done it with 1,000 people. There's never more than 5% duplication. So I write down the word freedom, and I write down choices. My next favorite word is predictability. So I write down predictability. I've never had anybody write down predictability when I've done it. And unless it was you and you've heard me do it, then you would just do it just to jab me, right?
Yeah.
But, say, I wrote down predictability too. But the reason I like predictability, and people go, well, how do you associate predictability and freedom together? And I go, well, freedom's my favorite word. It's my favorite word. And I love freedom because that's my morning question. How can I enjoy even more freedom today and help others do the same? If I have predictability in my life, if I have predictable relationships, I have predictable cash flow and earnings, and I have predictability in my life where that's really gives me a lot of freedom. I have the ability to stay with you for a couple hours today. I have the time I can take for that because I have predictability in my life, right?
Yeah.
And that's a fun word game. It's always a great way. I think I might have done it at your event. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think I may have done it there. So then for some of you, it's a repeat, but the pros say it takes me 8 times. I have to say the same thing 8 times before you're going to listen and learn. So
for me, at least 8. Yeah. Yeah. I think that word game is so important, and it's something that us in America, especially during this time, we could do a better job, myself included, of being more conscious of. Like, words have different definitions for every person. There's some overlaps for sure, and like you said, there are some overlaps. But like nowadays, I think a lot of people, when I say I value freedom, like I'm like a big time conservative patriot. Like, I want my freedom. Like that's kind of what I mean by freedom, but that's not exactly what I mean by freedom. Like, freedom is just, if I want to sleep in past 8 till 10, I sleep in past 8 till 10. If I want to not do this task because it just doesn't feel right for me, I don't do it. Like, that's what freedom means to me. If I want to, hey, Dave, let's fly to Dallas next week and work on ourselves all day, and I have that freedom to do that. So that's more just being able to do what feels best for me and not what like doesn't feel right. I mean, it's very rare. There was something that happened like 2 weekends ago, and I shared with my therapist. I was like, hey, this is like the first thing I did that I didn't want to do that I can remember. I was like, I'm still thinking about it because I'm like, I don't do things I don't want to do. Like, that's like why I value freedom. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like, why would I do it if I don't want to do it? Like, I don't need to. So, anywho,
there was a lot of possible jokes in there that I could have had.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna just kind of let them go.
That's all right, Dave. Anything else that regarding Comma Club or anything that you'd like to touch on before we bounce?
Not really. I mean, it's fun. I love hanging out with, for me personally, I love hanging out with entrepreneurs. I love the energy that they all bring in. I'm working on, and I'm doing another book, which is, writing books is a lot of work. And, I'm working on that, and it relates to a lot of this stuff that we're kind of talking about now. Is that what was real for me when I was 30 years old is real for you when you're 30. There are differences. There are things that have changed the society. Certainly, technology and capabilities, capacities are tremendous now. I will say that one of the other things we are going to touch on, and I think it's important for all of us, when you don't have to be there to get it, is that this whole pandemic thing, this whole virus thing, it's really impacted how we go about doing business, how we, and I've had a couple of incidences up here where I'm dealing with people that are typical. I played golf the other day with a guy who's this head of strategy for a company called Nestle, like the chocolate bar, big company, interesting guy. And, but his pattern, it's fascinating to me. What he's doing now is he's living his life more like you and I have our life, our freedom. We don't have to go to the office. I haven't had to go to the office in years. I mean, I've conducted myself via calls, conference calling. We have the technology, and of course now Zoom and Skype and all these other ones are amazing what you can do with that. But they're now, their new normal is kind of living their life like I've been living my life for 10 years. And I had to invest and put infrastructure, hire people to make sure the management team, and we're doing the shifting. And that now you have the team set up like that. And so I think this shift of what's going to be, and I hate to use the term, the new normal.
Yeah,
I don't.
I agree.
I just don't like that. But it is different. And so how are we going to react to that? And how are we going to set up our teams? How do we personally, as entrepreneurs, we have more people behaving like us now, they're doing, their calls, they're at their home. Like a really good friend who's a big company guy, and he's loving it because he's typically his day would consist of meetings, physical meetings, from 7 in the morning until 5, 6 at night, and then dinners or whatever. I mean, big company guy. And now he's doing those same things, and they're faster because people don't want to spend 2 hours in a meeting. They want to get to the deal and get to their next one on these Zoom things, and that's what they're doing. So be interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how that all plays out and how we need to play in it. And so I think, we're going to have great dialogue when we look at, because we bring all these different, entities and, from veterinarians to, wealth guys to, what you do. And so we have this smattering of all these different industries. So it'll be interesting to see and hear that dialogue of how we're all feeling and how we feel we're gonna go playing as we go forward in the business side of it. So
yeah, I mean, it could end up being a blessing in disguise for companies, because what I believe, and you could probably back this up, is a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs and stuff, like if they truly got clear on their values, myself included, I used to think I wanted to be the boss. Now I don't want to be the boss. I'd rather just get my values. I'd rather have the freedom and have somebody else be the boss. And it took me a lot of headaches to figure that out.
Now you're willing to pay and make now when you hire a new boss, you're making an investment into that with that person and giving that opportunity to that person so you can not be the boss.
Exactly.
So you're willing to make that investment. You're paying.
Yeah, I used to want to be the boss. Now I'm paying to not be the boss.
No, exactly.
Now I'm like, how much is it going to cost for me to not do this? No, but I think companies, I'm not an economist and know exactly what the jobs report looks like, but I know the last 10 plus years, there's been a trend of, especially for younger people, not staying at jobs very long. And I think if companies can adapt and say, hey, you're not an owner, or, I know a lot of companies, there's options and stuff like that, but you're not the CEO, it's not your company, but we're going to give you a lot of the freedoms and flexibility that having your own company would, and I think that's where we're kind of morphing, as our whole team has been remote now. And it's like, hey, if you want to take off Friday, great. If you want to work the next 2 weeks in Colorado, great. I don't care, as long as stuff's getting done. So then I think companies can create a better culture of, and we can still do in-person stuff. We still plan to do in-person activities and things like that. But I think this can actually be a blessing in disguise long term for a bunch of companies, because they'll figure out, like, hey, all these young people, I don't know if they want to, the risks of business and personally guaranteeing everything and getting $400,000 debt like I did. They probably, some of them may, but they probably just want that flexibility to be able to live their life and enjoy with their loved ones and travel and stuff like that. So I do think there can be some positives.
I'm on the board, an advisory and executive board of a great company called the Siegfried Group, and they're out of the East Coast, and we have offices in 19 cities, and they put young, they like PwC, Pricewaterhouse, and the big guys, Deloitte and Ernst & Young, but Siegfried specializes in, they don't do audits, and so they have 800-900 consultants that they put out into the jobs, and they usually are dealing in Fortune 100 companies. The average age is probably 28 years old, and so I'll be out at the end of October, I think, for an event that there's going to be one of their first events coming back off, and you can attend it virtual, you can attend it in person, and they're very, very just a great organization in how they've changed their mindset, because in that industry there's a turnover. The guys come out of college, they're CPAs, they go to the big guys, they get sick of that, they go to another one, they get sick of that, then they go into the private sector, kind of the chain, and they're lasting 2, 3, 4 years, and then they move on. And what's been fascinating is to watch Siegfried, the CEO, who I've been with for a long time and coached, and we have a wonderful relationship. Watch him change and realize the significance of being able to, from a financial standpoint for the business, being able to retain that person for another year, 2 years, 3 years. So they just set out with the retention idea. Let's just retain them for another quarter, because bigger companies go by quarters more than they do years.
Yeah.
And I think the average so far since that initiative started, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I think it's gone up by 4 or 5 years. It's a significant number and huge impact. But to your point of giving them the freedoms to do that, but it's been a huge investment for the company to be able to do that, because you have to have the infrastructure, you have to have the technologies, you have to have the way you guys, the younger people, I'm pretty good at it for a 64-year-old, using technology and communicating and getting on that stuff and wanting to do it on my apps and all that stuff, right? It's just a way of life for you guys.
Yeah.
You buy cars on your app. I mean, I go, what? I said that to you. What are you doing? I go, well, I'm picking up my car, and you're on your phone. I go, well, you're doing what? So you're not going to go in and look at it? No, this is a great company. And it's this car, and it's like, so that was a shift. I'm like, holy smokes, people actually do that, right? So anyway, so to your point, I've watched that in real life experiences, and I get a chance to participate in, whether I go on stage and do it for their company, or I get a chance to participate behind the scenes to impact those things. And it's great. And I love seeing that. And so to your point, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a blessing in disguise, because it's forced a lot of us to go, hey, maybe this isn't so bad.
And it's probably just better for the earth. It's better for everything. I know, like, the carbon footprint's down, gas consumption is way down, traffic isn't as bad. I mean, we don't really need to be driving cars all the time. Sorry, I know you have some successful car dealership friends that may not appreciate that, but maybe people still buy the same amount of cars. Maybe it'll still just be more recreational than work and going. Maybe rush hour will calm down a bit. Like, there's a lot of positives that can come out of this for sure. What?
I just got a message from him.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right. So I have one more question for you. So how we've talked about our age difference a couple times on this combo. How do you feel like you've changed the most since you were 30 to where you are now?
Yeah. I guess that's a great question, actually. And, I would say that the most significant part for me is just really being in love with myself. Not to the thinking I'm the world's best or anything, not that kind of thinking, but just truly, when I look at myself, I like that person looking back at me, and just embracing that side. And I always challenge people, and I've done this to you, I think, a few times over the years, just sit in front of the mirror and just look at yourself for 5 minutes once. In 15 seconds, usually people are already starting to twitch. And so it's a good meditation side to be able to really be truly and look at yourself and say, hey, am I really being all I want to be? Am I really the person I say I am? Am I living my life congruently? And when that started for me, Jeremy, is when it was probably, oh my goodness, probably when I was turning 50. I was going through a divorce. I was, just having this identity thing, and it wasn't, the mid-50s crisis. I didn't need to be, it wasn't about chasing women and chasing or, doing that stuff. It was more just kind of finally coming to grips with who I said I was, who I wanted to be, and really just embracing that part of myself. And that was when I just let my ego go. I just, I did this, I went to a guy who was an interesting guy. I think his name was Kim White, and he was a spiritual guy, and he did this cleansing. It was real bizarre. I mean, it was like over the top for me at the time. I mean, it was like people might go, wow, that's cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, it was kind of weird. But I did a concept or an exercise with him where I called out my name, and I just said, ego, you've served me well. Thank you for getting me to where I am, but I don't need you anymore. I'm going to go from this day forward without you. And that was the moment where I received myself kind of and loved myself. And it wasn't this facade or this ego or this person, oh, he's successful or he's this money guy. And once in a while, it rears its ugly head with me in certain situations where people are annoying to me. Where they just, and we're touched on a little bit earlier, and it's like, you know what? I just don't want to spend my time with people like that. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to be critical, but I've just found really easy ways to exit out of those situations The reason I exit out of it is because I don't want to introduce my ego back into my life. It's really an interesting triangle of, and that was pretty much where that really hit and registered with me, letting go of that, because it just is so much energy, right? And the decisions sometimes we make, like choices to go into debt, choices to make it look better, to buy a bigger car, to buy a bigger house, to try to have this image out there. It's like, it's a lot of work to maintain that image.
That's good. Self-love. I appreciate the share, Dave. It was it was fun having you on. And then for any listeners, I'll have the link to the Comic Club in the notes. So thanks for hopping on today, Dave. It was awesome.
All right. Well, it's always fun. I love it. So, and I didn't tell the story about you came up to the island in your Italian jacket with the knee-high socks on. I didn't tell that story.
I'll have you back on soon, and we can kick it off with that.
All right. Thanks. Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player so you get updated when new episodes are live. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast with people in your life that you feel would benefit from these types of discussions. Visit openlyoutspoken.com for additional details on the show. Find out how to connect with Jeremy on social media and learn more information about Jeremy's personal and business life. We'll see you next time.